We're live. I think maybe we are. Okay. Hi, I'm Cody Sisco. I am one of the co-editors of the Made in LA Writers fiction anthology series, and I'm here now with a box of copies of Made in LA Volume 4, Beyond the Precipice, which is our newest installment of the anthology series, and I'm going to unbox it with you today and take you inside the anthology and tell you about some of the stories that are going to be featured. So our printer is Ingram Spark, and you can see that we get these packages on our doorstep that have been through a lot by the time they reach us, and cross our fingers that everything's fine and they all look good. So this is, we'll see what's inside. Wow. Oh, these are gorgeous. So our cover designer is Allison Rose, one of the founding members of Made in LA Writers and a co-editor for this volume and every volume. She does all our covers, which are gorgeous. Volume 1 was Stories Rooted in the City of Angels. Volume 2 was Chasing the Elusive Dream. And Volume 3, hopefully these are in focus, was Art of Transformation. This book came out during the pandemic. It came out in October of 2020. And originally we had hoped to bring it out in March of 2020, and that got delayed, and the Festival of Books got canceled that year. But we brought it out later in that year after a delay, and it was really great to be able to do this with the editors and the contributors, and now we're on to Volume 4. So I'm going to give you a peek at what's inside. This isn't necessarily a pandemic anthology, and what I mean by that is that a lot of the stories were written before the pandemic, and though they've been edited more recently, that's not how we're thinking about it. We're thinking about this as an anthology full of stories about Angelinos who are pushed past the point of no return, and the stories are all about what happens next beyond the precipice. So, the story that opens the anthology is Burnt Tortilla Sugar by Tisha Marie Reichley Aguilera, and it is, I think, the perfect starting story. It has such a strong sense of place. It takes place within a sort of darkened bar in a downtown establishment with live music that is maybe changed over the years. We have a main character who is looking back on a relationship and trying to reconcile what she remembers with what's in front of her. And it's just a perfect piece to open up the anthology. The second story is by Amy Jones Sedevy. The title is Just a Girl in the World. And this one, it's fun because it takes place in a sort of art scene LA, with all of the kind of fussiness that you might imagine. There's conflict on a professional level between some of the characters that spills over into their friendship, and the voice of this one just really got us and grabbed us from the start. Next we have Carter Mycroft with Bathypelagic Double Shot Blues. I think I said that title correctly. And Carter we've published before, actually. He had a story in Volume 3 that was titled Shark News, and it was all about a young man who was looking for a job and found a gig helping this guy with a radio show that was all about sharks, and had a really strong Venice vibe. This story also has a connection to the sea. It takes place in a very familiar setting of a coffee shop, and all of the characters are kind of living in the aftermath of losing family members to a cult that has a connection with the sea. And I'll leave it at that, but it's a very creepy little story, and it was a perfect fit. Next we have Where We Make Home with Hazel Kite Witham. And this one is a very poignant picture of a woman who is homeless, who it's kind of a sort of a day in the life kind of story, but you know, she's trying to pass as a man for her own safety, and it's an interesting picture of something that affects every Angelino, no matter where they live. Let's see. Next we have Deborah Weiss. This is a fun little story called What I Left Behind, and although its subject matter is kind of grim, it's about a woman preparing to evacuate her house and her family and her animals from an approaching wildfire, but it's told with this really kind of wry sense of humor that you know, juxtaposes both absurdity and devastation, and how we cope with those things that are so much bigger than us. This is another one where the voice captured us right away, and we had to publish it. Next we have The Long Drop by Rachel Warecki, and this is a historical fiction. It is it's an example of how complicated, willful, multi-layered female protagonists run through this anthology. We have more female writers than we've ever had in an anthology before, and the subjects show. So this one is about a woman boxer who is on a rooftop, very iconic kind of setting, and she's boxing with another woman, and they're kind of in the middle of this complicated sort of mafia debt related conflict, and it explores the psychology of violence among women, and yeah, just really enjoyed it. Next, another fun one. This is by Lucy Rodriguez Hanley. It's called Huevos, fritos, and it's about a woman who is awaiting the results of a test. It is not a COVID test. It is a pregnancy test, and she works in this kind of floofy media office environment where her colleagues are ridiculous, and she's going through this kind of very real issue, and so it's a kind of humorous take on that situation. This one was a lot of fun. Next we have Requiem by Atif Rashid, and this is kind of a counterpoint kind of story, in that it's about a character who suffers a loss when his friend commits suicide, and it's about how he tries to move on and deal with his grief by reaching out to people who were kind of in the same social circle, and how grief can manifest itself in surprising ways. There's some very beautiful writing in this one. Let's see, what's next? Okay, Finish Line by Sasha Kildare. This one, it got us for the premise right away. So it's about an Olympian who is competing and is injured, and it's about kind of her reckoning with what happens next in her life. And, you know, there's some kind of surprising turns that it takes, and just felt like this was very... it has all the LA setting vibes, but also a really interesting character dilemma. Next, we have Two Trunks by Kate Moe. This story is told from the point of view of a young girl whose family inherits these trunks when another family member dies, and she goes digging around in them, which is a metaphor for what's happening in terms of her uncovering some family secrets and living in the aftermath of intergenerational trauma from relatives who were imprisoned or interned in camps during World War II. And yeah, really poignant kind of exploration of that scenario. Next, we have J.P. Higgins. His story is titled Living, Dead, and In Between. This one is also from the point of view of a homeless person with mental health challenges, and what grabbed us from the start was the kind of idiosyncratic and interesting point of view throughout the story where the main character sees the world one way, and it's not something that would be evident to anyone around him. Yeah, that was really what caught our attention. So glad to include this one too. It's also, I think, JP's first published story, and we love to introduce new writers to our readers. Let's see. Next, we have the one and only real pandemic story that's in this anthology by Nick Doretta. It's called The Pandemic Salon, and it's about an actor who finds himself a bit unmoored when everything changes around him, and it has a real kind of Lynchian, creepy vibe where the normal seems odd and the odd seems normal, and the character has to find his way out of this situation. We've published Nick in the past also. His story, Lucky and Carmella, was in volume 2, and that was a cute kind of romp based on a misunderstanding about a car. So we're happy to have Nick again in this volume. Next we have Christina Stewart with Stealing Away. And this is about a woman who is married with teenage daughters who is feeling really at sea in her life and kind of bored, and finds a kind of renewed life and vigor via the thrill of shoplifting. And so it's fun, and Christina is so good at capturing her characters' urges and how they play out in interesting ways. The penultimate story in this anthology is Boys on Mulholland by Jana Layton, and this one really captured what feels like a contemporary moment in LA. It's about two influencers who had been partners but are now on the outs and trying to figure out how to revive their careers. And they intersect one night at a party in the hills of Hollywood, and things don't go well. And I don't think I want to spoil it any more from there, but I'll just say that this was, really, really great setting, great character details, and compelling setup. What's next? Oh, the final story is Lover's Leap by Katie Jarvis. And this one packs a punch. So it's about a woman who is leaving a relationship and starting a new one, and she is just torn apart, torn in two directions really. And I thought that Katie captured that feeling and conveyed it so well, and the setting is just 100% kind of West LA, pool, palm trees, but done in an interesting way. And this was a really, really strong one. We knew when we read it we had to publish it, and it's the one that rounds out the anthology. So that is it for the volume 4 contents. We are so excited to bring this into the world. The official launch date is May 1st, and you'll be able to get it at any bookstore. You can order it from Skylight, Last Bookstore, any bookstore, you can order it from. And you can also order it online. If you do so, I'd recommend bookshop.org, because a share of the sales go to support indie bookstores. But anywhere else you can find books, you'll find it starting May 1st. And we will be at the Festival of Books on April, I think, 23rd and 24th. I believe those are the dates. I'll be there. The co-editors will be there. We will be selling copies of all of our books and chatting with our readers and just kind of celebrating our return to the place where we were born and the place where we grew up at the festival. And we invite you to come by, say hello, buy a book, and hang out with us for a bit. So thanks everyone, and hope to see you soon.